I just finished the first, I think this is my first read of June that I completed. This is Stay With Me by Becky Wade. I started reading this in May, but then I had to go and buy the book, and it really was like I had to, because I checked it out from the library and started reading it and then wanted to make notes in it. So I was putting like sticky notes, and then I stopped reading it because I purchased it because I really wanted to annotate in here and mark a few things down. I was not even 100 pages in and I was making notes. So I went ahead and I purchased the book. So I went ahead and purchased the book, and I just finished this. So good. 5 stars. This, if you haven't read it yet, it follows Bible study writer or author Genevieve and her family, really, and her friends. So Genevieve is part of what they call the Miracle Five. Her and 4 other people survived this massive earthquake as children, and it has kind of shaped their lives, as something like that will. And so Genevieve now is a Bible study author, but she also has an addiction problem to painkillers, and this is a pretty recent thing, and she has tried to stop and not been able to. And so at the beginning of the story, we find her having taken a few pills and fallen asleep in someone's guest cottage, and he, the owner of the farm, and the cottage, finds her. The owner of the cottage is Sam, and Sam is such an endearing character. His name is Sam Turner. He has his own past dealing with addiction, not necessarily him, but well, he's got his own past. That's what we'll say with it. He is none too pleased to find a stranger in his guest cottage, and more so one that has an addiction. And so we kind of follow along this story, but also it touches on the lives of Genevieve's parents, who may have some secrets hidden themselves. And then her sister is a big character in here as well. Her sister is married and has 2 kiddos, but she was part of that original miraculous or Miracle 5 that got that was trapped in the earthquake. I believe the next story has to do with another character from the Miracle 5, Sebastian. And so I did check that out from the library, but I am almost thinking maybe I should just look around for a copy of that one, because if I liked this one so much, I may just want to continue on with highlighting and annotating and all the fun stuff. But if you watched I think I'm just going to end up calling it my reading a little bit of everything, whatever it is, video. I will link that for you if you missed it. But I mentioned my piles of possibilities and to be read-ish list in there. So my current reads, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. My current reads, I think, are 7. And then there are 2 that my oldest son, would like for me to read. So I have a pile that's not even counting the library books that I've checked out. So right now on my Storygraph, I have current reads, and I just have too many on there. So this is one of them. I can mark that completed. But I also have To All the Boys I've Loved Before. I picked this up. I think I mentioned it in that video too. It was a reread for me, and I picked it up. I don't think this will be the next one that I'm going to pick up, though, because another one is a library book. Actually, 3 more are library books. Permission to Offend by Rachel Luna is a nonfiction book that I've checked out. And then I also have this throwback, which is just like a young adult fiction, or fiction story that I started. I'm only like 44 pages in. So I think I should prioritize the library books first, get those read before I can pick up another book. I do think I am going to DNF a book, Smart But Scattered, because I've been picking it up and putting it down, picking it up, putting it down, and I misplaced it somewhere. So that book is more of a like resource type book where you can come back to it, I feel like, multiple times. It was a book that I had started reading. It says the revolutionary executive skills approach to helping kids reach their potential. And so I thought it would help with some of my kiddos, but it's a lot of like quizzes, and it's stuff that you can kind of skim through if it doesn't apply to you or your kiddos. And so I think I'm just going to go ahead and put that on my DNF, and then maybe I'll pick it back up when I find it. But there is another book that I purchased that I want to get to before that. So if I didn't confuse you enough, I am going to DNF a book, which brings my current reads down to 6. Brings it down to 6 because I already marked this. Whoops, not this. I already marked this completed. So now my current reads are 6. I think what I'm going to do is I have 2 kind of books that are in the self-help genre, maybe. The Permission to Offend and Atomic Habits are on there. Atomic Habits I've been trying to get through, and I just want to finish it because it's been on my currently reading since November of last year. So I think I'm going to make a game plan though, first to finish the library books and then tackle those. Let's see what comes up next. Okay, I finished another book. Finally, I feel like this has been a slow reading month for me, but I did a reread of The School for Good and Evil. I wanted to reread it because my oldest and I want to watch the movie, and I think the movie is based off just this first book, and it's been a while since I read it. So finished the reread. Yeah, I will say this is definitely not a secular, this is definitely not a faith-based book. This is very much a secular book. It is based on a school for good princes and princesses, and then evil for the villains in fairy tale stories. And then these are kind of like the children of some villains and princes and princesses, and then some get taken from a village nearby, and they call those, my son's here, Galvadon, he's telling me the name of the city. Those are called readers. And so this follows Agatha and Sophie, 2 readers that get taken, and at first you think they must be in the wrong schools, but then as we continue on, it tells a little bit more of their story. It gets kind of like, what? And the book ends in a okay. For me, like, some people will eat it up and love it. We did end up reading the rest of the series because once I dig into a series, I usually like have to know the whole story. The way that it ends is sort of a cliffhanger and leads you on to the next book, but I'm not quite sure that we all saw that coming. So yeah, I read it. And I'm not sure if I'm going to keep reading the rest of the series. Like I said, I just wanted to reread this one because I wanted to watch the movie with my son. So I'm going to turn this in. I don't think I'm going to check out more books, but I always say that, and you know. I technically have one more day of June, I think. How many days are there in June? 30 or 31? I have one more day. It's the 29th, the day of filming, but we'll call it close enough. I'm looking down because I have my apps pulled up on Storygraph. For the month of June, I read 9 books. I always think it's gonna be, like, it feels like it might have been less, but 9. Let's see which 9 I finished. I will tell you this though. I went ahead and DNF'd Throwback. I left my bookmark in there because I wanted to tell y'all how far I got. I got to 108. I was going to start chapter 13, and I just was not feeling this book at all. I really wanted to like it because it was set in the 90s partially. It's where she goes back in time and learns more about her mom, and I really wanted to like this story, but I just wasn't feeling it, and I found myself just making myself read it for the sake of saying I finished the book, and I didn't want to DNF a book. But then I was like, but why? Because you're not getting graded on what you are reading. A DNF does not count against you. Does that make sense? I think sometimes, like, does anybody else do that? Let me know if you do that. If you're like, I have to finish it because I have to finish it, and then like I lost sight that reading is supposed to be fun, and I don't have to finish it if I'm not enjoying it. So I didn't finish it. I put that on my DNF list. I did, however, read Fall of the School for Good and Evil. It was The Rise of the School for Good and Evil, the second book. I read that at the beginning of June, and I think I forgot to tell y'all. So I finished that one, and then I went ahead and read I reread the first book of The School for Good and Evil. So if you've not read that series, The School for Good and Evil came out first, and there's 3 books that you can read, and you can kind of stop there. And then he wrote, I believe, another 3 books that follows like the second part after they finish school. And so if you want to continue on in that world, you can finish that. And then after those books were written, there were prequels. I hope I'm explaining this right and using the right verbiage. I've been known not to. So which follows the originators of the school. If you've not read the series, I don't want to give too much away. So it follows the 2 brothers that are the head of the school, and it tells more of their story. And there are 2 books about the brothers. So I finished that second book of the prequels. It was, I didn't give it any stars. Sometimes I will do that. I won't give it stars. So if I remember, let's try that again. If I'm remembering correctly, I thought it was a good like piece of the puzzle, and it really made me almost want to reread the entire series again. I know I've mentioned this before, that I read the series because my son and I wanted to watch the movie, which we did. The movie, I felt like the book was better. The movie is good, but both my son and I, we like to read the books first and then watch the movie and then kind of talk about what was different and what wasn't. And so, yeah, that was a fun time. We did that. But all in all, kind of a cool world to visit. But as I reread it, some of the things I think I didn't pick up on, or I wasn't as, I don't know, maybe sensitive or hyper aware of it, where I was like, these are kids, and why are we talking about children this way? And so be aware of that. These are definitely secular books, also stuff to be aware of. I did finish, I let you know I finished Stay With Me. I finished I Let You Know I Finished Stay With Me by Becky Wade. So good. Sunkissed by Kasie West. I finished that one as well. I give it 4.25 stars. So in this book, it is about Avery and her sister, and they go away to camp with her parents. Avery is getting ready to, I believe she's getting ready to go away to college or entering her senior year, and so her parents feel like this is our last year, really, that we have together as a whole summer with the family in case Avery doesn't come back from college, that kind of thing, or she starts to begin her own journey. And so they take her to this camp for the entire summer, and there is no Wi-Fi out there. So her sister, who has kind of a video channel, she is forced to not create and or post, at least, because there's no Wi-Fi. And Avery, on the other hand, is on the other side of that kind of spectrum and doesn't like to be in front of the camera. She doesn't like to be in front of people. And in this story, we learn a little bit more about the sisters and their relationships. The sisters learn more about each other. Avery, of course, there is a romance involved in there. It was just a fun, good-hearted, light read. There was some tough moments, conflict, of course, between the sisters, between parents and the daughters, and then, of course, a misunderstanding in the romance section. So all in all, I thought it was a good, light-hearted YA romance. Then I finished Too Soon for Adiós. This book, I don't know if it's picking up my kids, but I homeschool. My kids are here. This book is by Annette Chavez Macias. This book was so good. This is another book that I checked out and I kind of really want to try to purchase to go back in and annotate the way she related to her family and some of the things she says. Just so good. So it is about a young woman named Gabby, and Gabby loses her mother, and she doesn't know who her father is. She knows that her stepdad was her stepdad, but for all intents and purposes raised her, and that is her dad. Her father, her birth father, she didn't know him at all, and he comes back into the picture the day of her mother's funeral. And so this is a story about her and him and them getting to know each other. Maybe she wants to keep him at arm's length. He comes and tells her, I have a house and I'd like to give it to you. I don't need it and I'd like to give it to you, and if you give me the opportunity, I'd like to know a little bit more about you and tell you a little bit more about me. You kind of learn his side of the story, and it is, of course, there's some really tough bits because we're dealing with a parental death. We're also dealing with long family hurts. There are two tias in the picture that are not, or aunts that are in the picture that they're aunts by like heartstrings, not by blood. So they were all really close friends with the mom, and they take care of her and they know the dad. And so we kind of get to hear that story unfold, and secrets that were kept from her, and how Gabby is going to process this all. At the same time, there of course is a romance in the background that doesn't take over the story. I really liked that it didn't take over the story, but it was a thread throughout it, and I just found that it was woven together so well. So all in all, I really enjoyed this book. I believe I gave it 5 stars. The last line on the back of blurb is she ready to open herself up to the truth of what happened and the promise of what could be, and I think that kind of sums it up perfectly. I also got to read Tacos Fall Apart. This is a children's book, and this is by Brenda S. Miles, and I was able to read this through NetGalley. I usually don't pick up kids books there, but they had a children's book, and the title spoke to me. I just thought it was funny and cute, and the story was great. I ended up reading it to myself first, then I read it to my teen, I read it to my youngest, and I think I even read it to my daughter, which is right in between them, and we all loved it. We all could relate. We had a pretty good discussion about it. I cannot wait for this book to come out so that we can purchase it for our library and continue to have discussions about this. Taco Falls Apart follows this taco, and he feels overwhelmed and sometimes weak, and he falls apart. And in the story, we get to see his other kitchen friends come around him and speak truth into him and kind of be like, sometimes we all fall apart, and that's okay. So again, this was a great book to open up that conversation with your kids, that our thoughts our words become our thoughts, and our thoughts become our actions, and just following along that, and that not everybody feels like they have it together all the time. A digital read that I picked up was The Matchmaker, an Amish retelling of Jane Austen's Emma. This is by Sarah Price. I have not read Emma yet. I want to read it. That's actually the next Jane Austen book that I would like to read. I just haven't been in the mood for a classic, I think. But I believe that the movie Clueless is based off of Emma, so I felt like maybe I knew the story well enough to pick up the Amish retelling of it. I picked it up and it was adorable. I really liked this book. I really am finding that I really like Amish reads because it's going to be a clean, sweet, endearing romance, and it's just, for me, a nice break from reality, and you get to step away and just be in this world that still has mix-ups and mistakes, but there's a faith often woven into them, and they're kind of light, clean, feel-good books. So The Matchmaker did not disappoint. I gave it 4 stars. It's not much to say. It's a retelling of Emma, so if you have read that book, then you kind of get the gist of it. She also has a couple of other Amish classics retellings that I may pick up, but this one was fun and enjoyable. Another digital read that I got to read from NetGalley was Artifacts of an Ex by Jennifer Chen. This one I give 3 stars. That doesn't necessarily mean it was bad. I always feel like 3 stars sounds like it's bad, but it doesn't mean that I thought it was bad. I thought it was okay, usually is what that means. And this story, it kind of grew on me as the chapters went on, but the first few chapters were a little rough because there was a lot of Happy Planner, the brand. There was a lot of planner community verbiage and things in there, and I don't think that it was really described as something that I just feel like maybe that should have been in the description a little bit more, because it was talking about how she was a squad member, and it was like naming very specific planners from the Happy Planner line. And I don't think that if you are not in the planner community, if you're not in that kind of world and don't enjoy like decorative planning and things like that, you may have connected to the character as much, or you would have been able to fully understand what she was talking about. I think that that could have been left out, and it could have just been left more generic, and that may have worked a little bit better. Me even knowing the planner lines and things like that, I felt like a bit much. So I did keep pushing forward because I liked the story, and like I said, as the stories continue on, you get less of that and more of the actual story, and that was really good. So if you can get past that and not feel like you're lost in that verbiage, you may really enjoy the story. The story follows Chloe Chang, who gets dumped by her ex via FedEx or UPS, something like that. She gets mailed a box of her belongings, and that's how he's breaking up with her, and how she turns this into art, and what her discovery about herself and her ex and who she wants to be is. I really liked that the new romance, they were friends first. A lot of stuff did connect, and it almost was like they weren't, but they kind of wanted to build on that relationship. At least the young man in this portion did. So you get to follow along Chloe and how she gets over her breakup and moves on to another romance. And then lastly, it was another digital read. I read The Happy Life of Isadora Bentley. This is by Courtney Walsh. This one I just kind of picked up. It was on my library's recommended for me list. And this book I thought was adorable. I give it 5 stars. I really enjoyed this book. This follows Isadora, who has had some really hard past mental hurts. She had a mom that didn't always feed her, maybe in a loving way, not physically, but mentally. Kind of was a narcissist and put her down, or made it feel like if things went wrong, it was her fault. And Isadora grows up and kind of becomes this shell and hides, and doesn't want to get close to people because it hurts so badly. She also has a past romance hurt that she just, it near shatters her. And a lot of the things we get to see about Isadora and her past life, how it affected her so deeply, I think that on a level so many of us can relate to. And so I just love this book, and watching Isadora's journey and her in here we get to see her make a couple of new friends, and some that seem unlikely, and then we get to see a romance maybe begin again. This book, like I said, I really enjoyed. Give it 5 stars. Absolutely recommend. And that's it for my month of June. I'm sure you can hear my little dude in the background here. I gotta get to mom duties, but thanks so much for hanging out with me and sticking around. I didn't finish Atomic Habits, but we did inch closer, and I have not finished Permission to Offend, but I think I may be able to finish it today or tomorrow. I'm hoping I do. I'll let you know. Thanks so much for hanging out with me. And as always, if you don't know, or you just need to be reminded, may be the one to tell you, you are deeply and truly loved, and so appreciated. I really appreciate you taking your time out and spending it here with me. Thanks so much for watching.